The film begins by introducing a man named Veer, who is seen dancing in his village. However, this isn't for a humorous video. He is participating in a traditional funeral ceremony. It turned out, his simple life as a farmer has made him accustomed to the smell of the sun. But on that day, an unexpected encounter occurs. Rani, a strong and independent woman, comes to meet Veer. Apparently, Rani has been rejected by more than 20 men because of her big dreams, and now her family has set her sights on Veer as the next potential match. Realizing this, Veer immediately reveals that all he has are debts and a dream of building a low-cost airline for the poor. Hearing this, Rani doesn't stay silent. She immediately shares her own big dream of establishing the largest bakery in India, a dream that has also caused many men to shy away from her. Unexpectedly, they begin to argue about whose dream is bigger. But their debate is soon interrupted by Veer's mother, who serves a simple meal. Shortly after, when Rani notices writing on the wall that says Veer only needs 4 steps to achieve his dream, she immediately questions why it hasn't been accomplished yet. In response, Veer asking why Rani's bakery hasn't been built all this time. Because of this, their arguments continue, but without realizing it, a connection begins to form between them. Later that evening, Rani becomes curious about why Veer is so determined to build an airline. As a result, Veer shares that his village has always been left behind, lacking electricity, clean water, and transportation access. His father once fought for the village by writing letters to the government, and after 20 years, electricity finally arrived. However, Veer wants to fight for his village in a quicker way, even though his father disagrees with his methods. A heated argument erupts between Veer and his father, as Veer wants to take immediate action, even planning to block a train to bring attention to the village's needs. His father prefers a more peaceful approach, and their conflict reaches its peak when Veer says hurtful words, leading to his decision to leave home. Later, Veer joins the Air Force and becomes a pilot. Although his relationship with his father remains strained, Veer continues to send letters, which his mother reads aloud. At the same time, his father, though he doesn't admit it, feels proud of Veer's accomplishments. However, Veer's journey in the military is filled with challenges, especially frequent disagreements with his commander, Nadumaran, who often punishes him. One day, Veer had the opportunity to call his family. Filled with joy, he chatted with his cousin, but just as his parents were about to speak to him, the time ran out. This immediately made his father feel that Veer was still holding a grudge. At the same time, Veer repeatedly begged his commander, Nadumaran, for another chance to call, and even his close friend Chai offered his own time so Veer could speak with his family. However, Veer couldn't break the rules, leaving him to silently bear his sadness. Although there was no longer any hatred in Veer's heart toward his father, he was overwhelmed with longing and a deep desire to apologize. Unfortunately, his father's misunderstanding only pushed them further apart, and one day, that apology might never be spoken. Not long after, Veer decided to return home as soon as possible. His friends, including Chai, gathered money to help Veer buy a plane ticket. However, when he arrived at the airport, all the economy class tickets were sold out, and business class was far beyond his financial means. As a result, Veer pleaded with the airline, explaining that his father was critically ill and he needed to get home immediately. However, the airline was unable to offer much help, leaving Veer no choice but to beg for assistance from people at the airport. He even offered his personal information and address, hoping someone would help, but all he received were insults. People told him that if someone wanted to fly, they needed enough money, and that someone poor like Veer didn't belong there. Overcome with tears and emotion, Veer couldn't contain himself, and eventually, security escorted him away for causing a disturbance. With no other choice, Veer decided to travel by land, even though it would take much longer. He couldn't afford to wait any longer, and his only driving force was the desire to see his father to apologize. But when he finally arrived home, Veer wasn't greeted with open arms. The cold stares of the villagers seemed to say that Veer didn't belong there anymore. Even his mother refused to look at him. As a result, Veer fell to his knees in front of her, apologizing for not being there for his father in his final days. His mother simply threw down the letters his father had written and told him that he had only arrived now, when his father had already turned to ashes, as if implying that Veer had hated his father all along. His mother continued, telling him that in his last moments, his father had mentioned Veer's name. His father had apologized for being too harsh and strict in raising him. Not only that, he regretted not showing his love more openly. As a result, he felt he had failed as a father. But among all his apologies, he never doubted that Veer and his dreams would one day come true. Veer's heart shattered hearing his mother's words, as he hadn't realized how much his father had missed him all this time. Guilt overwhelmed Veer, and all he could do was apologize. He regretted not arriving in time. If only he had had enough money for the plane ticket, he might have been able to see his father rest in peace. Filled with deep remorse, Veer could only continue to beg for forgiveness from his mother and his father. It turned out, this is the reason Veer became so determined to build an affordable airline. He didn't want anyone else to suffer the same fate as he did. Soon after, the conversation went on late into the night, and eventually, Ronnie's family suggested that they both rest. The next morning, Veer, full of confidence, approached Ronnie and expressed his agreement to the arranged marriage. However, to everyone's surprise, Ronnie declined. Her rejection left both families confused, wondering what she truly wanted. At that moment, Ronnie explained that the refusal wasn't final, but because both she and Veer had their own dreams to pursue. She added that if Veer wanted to marry her, he first had to achieve his dream, and she would do the same. Only then would they discuss marriage again. Since that meeting, Veer and Ronnie focused on chasing their dreams. Veer, determined to build his airline, submitted his business proposal to hundreds of banks and investors. Unfortunately, none of them were willing to accept his idea. The reason was simple. Veer had no collateral to back his vision. Despite this, Veer wasn't alone in his efforts. His friends from the military, Chai and Sam, stood by him. They even pooled their money to help him take the first step towards his dream by purchasing a business class ticket from Jazz Airlines, the airline owned by his idol, Paresh Goswami. This move was made so that Veer could meet Paresh in person and present his business proposal. Upon arriving at the airport, Veer noticed a woman being troubled by the airline staff over her baggage fees, as the woman didn't have enough money to cover the extra baggage costs. Without hesitation, Veer offered to use his baggage allowance to help her. Shortly after, the woman introduced herself as Chitra, a senior producer at a news agency. Chitra mentioned that she was personally invited to an event by Paresh Goswami, the very person Veer was hoping to meet. When Veer shared his intention to meet Paresh to discuss a business proposal, Chitra advised him not to get his hopes up, as Paresh was known to be very difficult to approach. Despite this, his determination remained unshaken. On the plane, Veer observed many people trying to get Paresh's attention, but Paresh arrogantly ignored them. This motivated Veer to present his business idea directly to him. However, Paresh's response was unexpected. He laughed at Veer's idea along with his colleagues. Despite this, Veer continued explaining his proposal in detail. But the response from Paresh wasn't what Veer hoped for. Paresh told him that while he could approve the idea, he simply didn't want to. With arrogance, Paresh instructed the flight attendants to move Veer to economy class. But Veer refused, stating that he had purchased a business class ticket. Unexpectedly, Veer had forgotten that Paresh was the owner of the airline. As Veer exited the airport, he was approached by a businessman named Prakash Babu, who had overheard Veer's idea and expressed interest in learning more about it. They then continued their conversation at a modest restaurant. Initially, Prakash was reluctant to eat there, as he was used to dining in high-end restaurants, but after trying the food, he admitted that it was just as delicious as anything from a five-star establishment. Veer then explained that low prices don't always mean poor quality, and by keeping costs down, sales could increase. Furthermore, the middle class, who often need quick transportation, could benefit from such a service. Impressed by this explanation, Prakash told Veer that he would be away for 4 months, but upon his return, he wanted Veer to present the idea to the company's executives. Feeling that this was a step forward, Veer intended to share the good news with Ronnie. However, he found out that her bakery business had grown significantly, while Veer still didn't even have a name for his airline. Ronnie then told Veer that she was married and had 4 children. She added that it was better to focus on building wealth than to wait for a man with uncertain prospects. However, Veer's cousin immediately contradicted her statement, revealing that it was all a lie. Upon hearing this, Veer rushed after Ronnie, and on the way, he proposed that they get married that very week. At that moment, Veer mentioned that the land in his village had turned green, and the airline he had dreamed of was about to become a reality. As a result, Ronnie accepted Veer's proposal, but on the condition that their money would be shared, and family must always come first. Veer agreed, and they had a simple wedding. They then began their new life together by opening both the airline office and the bakery. Several months passed at Prakash's office. Veer is seen presented his vision for the low-cost airline he had designed. Initially, the company's board was skeptical and questioned how airline tickets could be sold so cheaply, given the high operational costs of running an airline. However, Veer laid out a well-reasoned plan, including the fact that they wouldn't need to buy planes, as Veer had found a company willing to lease aircraft at half the usual cost. Thanks to his convincing explanation, the business proposal was eventually accepted by the company. However, the next challenge was obtaining approval from the transportation department, as dealing with government administration was never easy and could be described as almost impossible. Day by day, Veer struggled without any significant progress, until one day, his patience reached its limit. Feeling he had no other option, Veer sought the help of Chitra, who was preparing for a live interview with the president. At that moment, Veer pleaded with Chitra to help him speak directly to the president, but Veer couldn't wait any longer. Summoning his courage, Veer interrupted the event that day, shouting that people from lower-income backgrounds also deserve the same opportunities to enjoy services usually reserved for the upper class. He declared that he needed approval to start his low-cost airline to fulfill the dreams of many who needed quick yet affordable transportation. Veer's bold act led security to escort him out of the room, but instead of being thrown out, he was brought directly before the president. Curious about his bravery, the president asked about the reason behind his desire to establish a low-cost airline. With a tone of deep concern, Veer shared his painful past, where, due to financial constraints, he couldn't travel quickly to see his ailing father. This experience became the driving force behind his determination to create an airline that would provide affordable transportation for people in similar situations. Unexpectedly, Veer's story touched the president's heart, and the transportation department swiftly approved his airline license. However, the path ahead for Veer was far from easy. At the same time, after hearing of this progress, Paresh felt threatened and began plotting ways to eliminate the small competitor like Veer. Soon after, a new government regulation was introduced, requiring every airline to submit the blueprints of their aircraft to the transportation department. However, Veer clearly didn't have the resources to meet this requirement. In desperation, Veer approached the head of the transportation department for clarification, but the only response he received was that he had to comply with the existing rules. Not long after, Veer's challenges only grew, as the aircraft leasing companies started demanding payment. If Veer couldn't pay soon, his airline would be taken over by Jazz Airlines, Paresh's company. When Veer expected Prakash to provide the promised investment, a shocking truth was revealed. Prakash had been working under Paresh's orders all along, deliberately tasked with sabotaging Veer's dream. Prakash then told Veer that life wasn't fair, and that the rich, like them, never intended to share planes with the poor. As a result, Prakash advised Veer to give up on his dream and return to digging his own grave. However, Veer couldn't accept the harsh reality of his dream being taken away so easily. After all the sacrifices he had made, there was no way it could end like this. Enraged, Veer lashed out at Paresh for his deceitful tactics. Though Veer had once admired Paresh, that admiration had now turned into deep hatred. Yet Paresh merely smiled coldly, watching Veer's downfall unfold. As time passed, Veer faced total bankruptcy. He was even forced to sell everything his family owned to settle the leasing debts. Now, Veer had nothing left, and his in-laws also berated him daily, calling him useless. Despite this, Ronnie stood by Veer, defending him in front of her family. As time goes by, Veer began to feel more like a failure, sinking deeper into depression. His despair was often directed at his beloved wife, Ronnie. This hurt Ronnie deeply, but Veer soon realized that, in the midst of all his emptiness and downfall, She was the only one still standing strong, supporting him tirelessly and loving him unconditionally. Not long after, Veer found Ronnie in the kitchen, immediately embracing her and apologizing for his harsh behavior. At that moment, guilt weighed heavily on Veer, but Ronnie gently wiped away his tears and reassured him, saying that even in the darkest storms, there is always light. She then revealed that she was pregnant with their child. This news brought hope amidst the despair Veer was feeling, reminding him that in every hardship, there is always joy and gratitude given by God. Days passed, and one day, as Veer gazed at the sky, an idea struck him. He watched small sparrows flying overhead, realizing that with their tiny bodies, they didn't need much food to soar. This sight reminded Veer of the small cargo planes he might be able to lease for his airline. As a result, Veer immediately drafted a new business proposal and presented it to Turboprop. With detailed explanations and unwavering confidence, Turboprop finally agreed to partner with Veer's airline, which was now named Deccan Air. Despite this, the challenges weren't over yet, as operational costs remained a significant hurdle. With a heavy heart, Veer had to borrow money from Ronnie. Upon hearing this, Ronnie was disappointed, not because of the money itself, but because Veer had forgotten their promise that their finances were shared. As a result, she told Veer that he didn't need to borrow the money as he could simply use it to make his dream come true. Meanwhile, Paresh was shocked by Veer's unexpected maneuver. Paresh immediately questioned the head of the transportation department, asking how this could happen without his knowledge. At that moment, the head of the department explained that he had assumed the request was from Paresh's own cargo company, which also worked with Turboprop. Seeing that Veer had not given up, Paresh became even more determined to eliminate him as a competitor. Not long after, Veer's airline still faced hurdles, requiring 32 million rupees for operational costs. This enormous figure left Veer trapped in debt. However, one morning, Veer was stunned by a sudden transaction in his bank account. The bank requested an explanation for the deposit, as more than 35 million rupees had been transferred into his account overnight. Knowing this, Veer quickly recalled a recent visit from his cousin. During a phone call, his cousin explained that the entire village had sent money to support Veer because they believed in his dream, just as they had believed in his father. As a result, tears of gratitude streamed down Veer's face, deeply moved by the overwhelming support. With this newfound support, Veer's path became clearer. He swiftly organized everything needed to launch his airline, from securing a runway, hiring pilots, developing a ticket booking app, to arranging catering services led by his wife's bakery. When the day of the test flight arrived, Veer and all his trusted friends gathered at the airport. However, Chai, the designated pilot, suddenly informed them that the plane had run out of fuel and the airport had denied their landing request. Hearing this, Veer rushed to the control center to address the issue, discovering that this was Paresh's doing. With no other option, Veer quickly instructed Chai to land the plane at a military airstrip. Because of this, Veer, Chai, and Sam were summoned to a hearing by their former commander, Nadumaran. During the hearing, Nadumaran outlined the regulations they had violated. Despite his disdain for Veer, Nadumaran decided not to press charges, only requiring him to pay a fine. Sometime later, Veer was invited to the office of the Minister of Aviation. During the meeting, Veer once again encountered his longtime rival, Paresh, who attempted to insult and belittle him again, but Veer remained unfazed. With confidence, Veer explained his low-cost ticket scheme to the minister. Not only that, the most expensive ticket he sold was priced like a train fare, while the cheapest was just 1 rupee. After an impressive presentation, the minister was ready to officially launch Veer's airline. Not long after, Veer conducted his first passenger flight trial. However, just as the plane was preparing for takeoff, smoke suddenly billowed from the propeller, forcing the flight to be canceled, and the minister was left disappointed. The media quickly swarmed Veer, asking if he would give up or continue with this dangerous low-cost flight. Veer couldn't respond to all the reporters, and soon, the narrative became that the public had lost faith in Deccan Air. This left Veer feeling devastated. After all his struggles, the outcome seemed bleak. Yet, amidst the storm, God brought joy, as Ronnie had given birth to their first son, Abu. As a result, the sorrow and heartbreak that had weighed down Veer began to lift. He quickly regained his strength and started inspecting each of his planes. Shortly afterward, it was discovered that the cause of the smoke was an overfill of fuel and leaking oil. Veer had a suspicion about who was behind this, and he immediately called one of his pilots, Manohar. In front of him, Manohar confessed his mistake. It turns out that Manohar is struggling with debt, which is why he accepts Paresh's offer to sabotage his plane. Despite this, Veer did not fire him immediately. Though Chai objected, pointing out that Manohar had nearly endangered lives, Veer simply told Manohar to leave. The next day, Chai and Sam came to Veer with news that someone wanted to buy his airline for 150 billion rupees. However, Veer refused the offer, not wanting to trade his dream for money. This angered Chai, especially considering their current financial crisis. Chai also reminded Veer of his responsibilities towards his child, wife, and mother in the village. After expressing his frustrations, Chai left Veer's home. Veer was torn by deep internal conflict. His confusion grew when his wife, Ronnie, told him that if he sold his dream for money, they might as well separate and live apart. Unexpectedly, her words reignited Veer's hope and determination to continue pursuing his dream. During the court hearing, questions arose about the cause of the smoke, and to everyone's surprise, Manohar admitted his guilt. He stated that neither Deccan Air nor Veer was to blame, but it was his own mistake. After all the setbacks, Veer began to rise again. Soon after, Chai also came and apologized for his previous harsh words, admitting that he had faith that Veer wouldn't disappoint him. Soon after, to restore public trust, Veer announced on the radio that he would bring 3 of his dearest loved ones, his wife, mother, and infant child, on the final test flight of his airline. The incident with Manohar had left Veer sleepless for 3 days straight. But the long-awaited day finally arrived. At that moment, Veer prepared for the test flight and waited for passengers, but none showed up as Ronnie sat quietly, waiting. With this situation, Veer faced the harsh reality that he couldn't beat Paresh's Jazz airline. As a result, with a heavy heart, Veer entered the cabin, ready to take his wife and child home. But just before leaving, Sam rushed in. Sam apologized, explaining that there had been a technical error with their online booking system. However, the issue only affected the flight Veer was on with his family. As it turns out, the flights from Mumbai and their village had sold out completely. Hearing this, Veer ran to the runway, and sure enough, 2 Deccan airplanes had landed with passengers who still believed in him. Finally, after 5 years of struggle and setbacks, Veer had achieved his dream. All the hard work, tears, and pain were paid off by this achievement. Pride lit up the faces of Ronnie, Chai, Sam, and everyone who had supported Veer along the way. They felt proud of the man they had believed in, who had now made his dream a reality. Amidst the crowd, Veer's mother appeared, holding a photo of his late father. She told Veer that he had succeeded and that his father had witnessed his achievement. She also reminded him that his father had always believed in Veer's ability to accomplish his dreams. Hearing this, tears flowed down Veer's face, overwhelmed with emotion. He wished his father could be by his side at that moment. With a heart full of gratitude, Veer silently thanked his father, the man who had once doubted him, for all of his success. He prayed that his father was happy and that one day he could soar even higher, breaking through the sky and clouds above to meet his father again. Moral lesson from the story: chasing your dreams might cost you a lot, but at least you'll get some fun arguments and a free bakery along the way. And remember, if your life feels like a mess, just blame it on the airline.